and determinism,
Very good.
the account concept of a person, like Jetty, and also the
Very good.
personal identity. Yes. And also we read about individualism and then Determinism, as well as the multiculturalism, cultural identity, and cultural change.
Well done. Well done. So I think for all the content we've engaged so far, we've had a good time mopping up, making sure it's settled in. I think what we have to interact on is the concept of multiculturalism. Okay, cultural identity in a multicultural state. And that is what we haven't uh, discussed. So we will do that today. Before we set off on that one, I'll take the feedback from you. Before we do that, do you have any questions, class, please? I think Sarah does a good job for us on that. So I don't need to go back and forth with you. We know the content that we've covered so far, but I want to know, do you have any questions? I've asked the third time, because I want to clarify any concerns people may have on the previous topics we've done before I add this one. Don't have any questions? Asantua, go ahead.
For the individualism and Determinism, we've read about it and then yes, but we've not really discussed it in class.
We've not discussed it in class?
I think
Okay.
we did a test rather, so we didn't do that discussion, and then last week we had to
That was
terminate the
it.
session.
Okay, so Sarah, thank you for the problem, but let me show you something on your course outline. It will help us. Okay, this is how we are going to engage you. I told the class, so it helps because this is a course outline. Okay, I'm projecting your course outline. Can I have one of you read this for me, please? Method of instruction. Or better still, just to save some time, please look on my screen if you can. Delivery will include lectures, discussions, in-class group presentations, and general research. That's how we'll deliver the content. So I just want to caution. That's what I'm asking. Is there any question? I'll take questions or queries from the student body on those readings I give to you to engage, and that will be it. When we meet and we are discussing the questions, that will be it for that topic. It is part of how we want to deliver content. Okay, I want to believe that I would have shared a recorded interactive time with you on that. Let me see if I have. Okay, now so let's discuss that then, if that is what will help at this. What questions do you have on that content, class? Let's start from the first one. Free willism versus determinism. Does anyone have a question on that? Okay. How about the second discussion, the concept of a person? Sarah, go ahead. Asantua Adonte.
Madam, you see, concerning the pluralism and determinism, we are told that one is obscure and one is impractical. So is there another name for the individualism? You have personism, which settles the two sides. That's the communitarianism and then the individualism. So is there another theory that settles the two? That's the pluralism and determinism.
That is between the free willism and determinism.
Yes.
Okay, so you would see that the argument for some is they aren't distinct. There isn't any extremely free willist position, neither is there a determinist position. It's always a conversation between the two. That is what we have in actual life, so to speak. So it is like someone advocating for a liberal view instead of individualist or communitarian view. Liberal would slant more towards individualism. is the same as someone arguing for moderate communitarianism view as a mediation between individualism and communitarianism. The moderate communitarian view will still slant towards communitarianism, but that is supposed to be a mediating view, the one that is reconciling the two. For free willism and determinism, the view looks like a blend of the two. That will be the mediating view, which says that we don't always make free choices. That is strange. Like, we are not free radicals like atoms or something. We are not free radicals. So our decisions are always inspired by a certain purpose we have in mind. Like, the reason why we are gathered this afternoon is because even though we chose to be here, that the choice is not free, sir. You see, there's a certain sense of regulation. There's something that drives the choice. So it's not as free as it's presented by the free willist. It is influenced by a certain end that we have in mind. So you could say that there's a sense in which there is determinism, even in that free will. The same way we tell the determinists that you cannot say that we do not choose our actions. Our choices are ours, even if there were antecedent factors that influenced the choices we made. We did make the choice. We stretched our hands and it hurt the person sitting behind us. We, perhaps unintentional, but we did it. So we tell the determinist also that there is a sense in which, even in pursuing an argument for the determinist, you would still be called what? A free willist of a kind. So the mediating view merges the two. Perhaps the only thing is we haven't found a label that we can give, like I've done with pessimism and the others that you rightly point out. So that is the reconciling position for the two extremes. Right. I'll take another question. Thank you, Madam. Patrick, I disabled your mic. If you make noise, I will disable it. Go ahead with your question. Your hand is up, so ask your question. I'm taking more questions.
Okay.
For more questions.
Yes, mine was the determinism, and one of the problems that we have about like is impact. Let's say society is immoral. It's not practicable. And then recently I listened to this take on a set subject, which was given by a Muslim. And according to what he said, it seems as if
sorry to interrupt you. Please move around a little. Your reception is not too good. So either you move around, or if you are moving, be stable. But alter something so that we can hear you. And then recap everything that you said. Thank
you. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you clearly. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm saying my question is about the determinism theory. And then some of the problems are determinism problems with theory is that it's impractical, and because it's like but then I was recently listening to this take on a subject, and it was a Muslim man giving his thoughts about something, and then according to they believe everything that happens, whether it is good, whether it is bad, is supposed to
Please be stable again or something. We are losing you somewhere. According to the person who was speaking on TV, they believe that whatever happens, whether good or bad, then I miss the rest.
Okay. He was trying to say whatever happens, whether good or bad, it was predetermined to happen. So that they cannot change anything about it. And that is somewhat of a determinist view, right? So if
It
it is impractical, like how we were saying, then does that mean maybe he was maybe wrong, or that's just how
Yes, he could be wrong. Yes, he could be wrong. Don't sweat about it. I'll react to it, but he could be wrong. Just like we could also be wrong with our matters of faith. It's as simple as that. But more importantly, Patrick, predeterminism is not necessarily the same as determinism. Okay. Predeterminism goes beyond determinism. As soon as we make cases of predetermined, that is before you even, came into the world, for example, like some of us, I'm a person of faith. I am one of the people who says, before the foundations of this earth, the Lord knew me. That is a predeterministic expression. So it's like I already have my life ordained before I was born, before my father and my mother got busy. I had antecedent conditions laid out for me, like Jeremiah was told. I believe in predeterminism. But what that means is what we discuss. Does that mean that I cannot be accountable? Would Judas be judged? We discussed stuff like that in level 100. Will he be judged when before the foundations of this earth, God knew him? And God, nothing surprises the Father of creation. I'm speaking faith, okay? Just like you said, you heard someone of faith speaking. So the philosophical reflection on it is what we do. If I were to say that whatever happens has already been determined, the way we explained it, not even predeterminism that makes claims of before life, sort of, but determinism explained as everything that happened is as a result of external factors or internal factors outside of the person's control prior to the action, which conditioned the action. The girl is not learning how to cook. When mommy is in the kitchen, I say the girl because I'm an African, but the boy should also, okay? She's not. Mommy is cooking, she's watching TV. Mommy does the African local dish, she's busily fixing her nails. Then she finally gets a very good marriage by a typically African rich brother. Now he wants to eat fufu, and you are with him in Oslo, Vienna. He can buy all the cassava, all the whatever there. You compound. The determinist's argument works here. It's not even talking about before you were born, or it tells you that the effect we are seeing now is as a result of a certain upbringing. Antiteno doesn't know how to do it. It is still determinism I'm discussing. That's practical. Okay, so if the person argues that you didn't choose it, there we go. Watch. You, the lady, it wasn't your fault. It was meant to be. Or it is the external factor that made you become what. When mommy was busily cutting the cassava and then say, Adra, come and help me with this thing, and you were busily fixing nails, so you didn't watch how to do it. How does that become something that you cannot be held accountable for? If we were to go strictly by the determinist view that we discussed. So the point is, there is a sense in which no matter the matter you take to deliberate, philosophically speaking, I'm a person of faith, I can speak my faith and say that this one was meant to be. Like Jesus' death on the cross. It was meant to be, nobody killed him. Didn't he tell you himself? He said, I laid down my life and I take it again. I laid it down. For you people. That's what Jesus says. God says, I love you so much that I gave you my son. For God so loved the world that he gave. That's what the Bible says. Meanwhile, Jesus says, I put my life down. Nobody took it from me. Not my father gave it. Then you and I know that, and we believe, and you read in the scripture, that the Pharisees, out of jealousy and fear that Jesus would take over their place, went to give him away to the, authorities, the political authorities. They left the church and gave away a son of the church to the political authorities just so that they would get rid of him. So they went to say, hey, you will not prosecute him. If you do, we'll write to Caesar. That's the politician there. Huh? We'll write to Caesar and say you are condoning with some recalcitrant Jew to obstruct his kingdom work. So the thought then it is the Jews that killed Jesus, the Jews, spiritual leaders. 3 interpretations. We're talking about determinism versus free will. Did the man freely choose to die? Or some people gave him away to be killed, including his father? What about in heaven when the announcement was made? I'm doing faith to compare with the other faith matter. When they asked who will go and die for the people, that one is also in the scripture. And there was silence. And Michael got busy, started sweeping and removing cobwebs that don't exist because he didn't want to be called. Everybody, the whole place was quiet, says the Bible. Then the Son of Man raised his hand. I will go. So if he said, I will go, which confirms his claim that I laid it down and I picked it. How can anyone say that someone killed him? Well, the same Bible says he was killed. It says what? If the princes of this world had known, they wouldn't have crucified. Do you see what I'm doing? I'm trying to show you that in that conversation and in that, act of death of the Son of Man, the Savior, there are different angles of it. You can look at it at different sides of it before the foundations of the earth. The Son of God was crucified. This is also scripture. One Bible, one event. Look at the various ways you can see it, as if it's a free choice by the person himself to come and save you and I. As if it's the Father who loved us so much that he gave away his only son, so that when that one son dies, he will win plenty sons and daughters unto himself. As if it is some jealous compatriot in faith who gave him away. As if it is the politician. There comes the third one, the fourth one or so. The Roman authorities, Pontius Pilate and his folks, that let him die. He washed his hands over it. Meanwhile, the Bible too says, before even the earth was founded, the Son of Man was crucified. Before God founded the earth, like foundation, before the foundations, the Son of Man or the Lamb was slain. So can you ever say that this was determined or this was free will? It is. That's what I'm dealing with all this while. So I think Sarah asked the question, and I said the point then is this one is even just a matter of faith. So faith means we all have belief that that is what happened. It becomes more controversial when we are dealing with actual life matters. They say write an exam. The exam will start at 7:30. Report at the center at 7 o'clock, says University of Ghana rules. Sit, receive your answer booklet so that you can use the 30 minutes to write your name, take the question paper if they are essays, have some time to glance through, think through. 7:30 grind is start work. That's the rule. You have come to school all this while. You know the rules. Then on the day of exam, you watch whatever, I don't know what is important to you, or you do all night. I don't know. I want you to see the matter we are discussing. And watch football, or football will look like you want to say what the person did was trivia. It is a matter of what you decide. So maybe let's say you did something that is worthwhile. You went to do morning devotion and you were just laying hands on people because you were led. Maybe, okay? Then laying hands, 7 o'clock. You are laying hands, the people are falling down. Anointing is flowing, 7:40. Hey, my brother, why are you laughing? The anointing is flowing. The anointing is flowing. I want to use something that is so that now we are sitting. We don't know what to make of it because the person was not playing. Hey, you lay hands, 8:15. Remember the rule of the university. You too, you came for Legon, to Legon, and want to get a degree. You get to the lecture exam center, at 8 o'clock. The chief tells you you can't write. Then you come home. How do you interpret that? I'm asking the class. I think I saw, I've seen quite a number of hands. Anna, no, it's Crystal or something. I'm coming up. Let me check work so that I'll call the person whose hand is. How do you interpret that? Please tell me. Only one person is in the class. Determinism or free will? Was the person determined to be late for the exam? Or the person chose freely to be late for the class? Remember, the free will is saying the choice is a free one. Not that you just chose, but he says you chose freely. If you say the person chose freely, then that is when you can hold him accountable. But if you say the choice was also determined, you are speaking determinist language anyways. So how do you interpret this? What happened? The prayer warrior who did morning devotion and the anointing flowed, Charlie, who were blowing tongues at 7:30. It's still on. Meanwhile, exam, you are supposed to get there 7 o'clock. I see only 4 hands. That's why I'm not calling anybody. I'm waiting for more hands because we've done this 5 weeks or so ago. I'm just mopping up. I think Sarah and the others prompted so that we make sure we have covered good ground before we engage in individualism, communitarianism, and the multiculturalism debate. John Boyd said, go ahead. John, you are muted, please.
Madam, please. I think he chooses to live free will.
Mate, why do you say that?
Because I think he was informed enough that these are the rules of the university. And as a student, you have to take part in the examination. And these are the rules. When you are late, maybe 30 minutes time, you cannot enter to the examination hall.
Yes, he was 45 minutes late.
And so he's aware of it. And intentionally...
Intentionally, you spoil it too. Have you been caught by anointing before? All right, thank you, John.
Laying hands on the people to deliver.
Maybe he doesn't have anything to write in that exam, my brother. So you have to
then he choose not to be there. He choose not to be there. So he free.
You, the people who disagree with you are coming. Stand there. Thank you, John. Let me take you, Raphael. Raphael, is it Raphael? I think your name hasn't been spelled right too. I see Raphael. But go ahead.
Oh, then I made a little mistake about that.
Not to worry. Not to worry. Go ahead.
All right, sure. So like, I would say, so let's say if he is an extreme determinist, yeah, I can also say like it has been preordained to happen, like considering the matter of faith in this like situation we are discussing or something. Considering the matter of faith, I can say it is predetermined to happen or something.
Yeah. Someone can argue that way too. That is why I was telling our friend who had Patrick's question that as for matters of faith, when people say this is what they believe, that like our brother Christian, there was nothing that could have saved him. You see, if you don't believe it, just say that I don't think so. I think the roads, we must fix the road. When Ebony's issue happened, the same thing. Folks said, this lady. Some say no, it's the road. If we would do so, we don't want to have a fatalistic approach to like fatal. I mean, that is how it will be. What will be, whether you learn or you don't learn. Some people sing that song to people when they see them learn. They say this one, zero. That means if you stretch yourself, don't sweat. This one, you can stretch. If it's zero, you get zero. Someone won't learn anything. When they go and see that, they will pass because the thing, That is how it has been ordained. If you're not careful a little, okay, you will have that posture, because sometimes much depends on you. That is why I gave you the scenario with the Jesus example. He took responsibility for it, even though the thing had already been ordained. Is he not the one who in the Garden of Gethsemane? I'm talking about my Savior, whom I profess as the model, is the model, the example I am trying hard to meet by his grace. In the Garden of Gethsemane, is he not the one who said, Papa, the thing be me where I talk say I go do am, but Charlie, myself, I change my mind. You see how I presented it? Because I'm talking to you people. In the garden, see, this hey, Papa. Oh, David. Me and I'm wait there. I'm saying, may I ask somebody? I'm saying the same thing. He said, if it is possible, let this cup pass. The thing is not easy. Oh, I can't raise my hand in heaven. That's why Michael went to buy cake. When he heard that you were asking, all of a sudden he said that the electricity in heaven has short. He's going to buy ECG. Hey, you know, the man Jesus, I said the man Jesus now, he was living the actuality when the guy had already raised his hand that I'll go and do it. So he had chosen. The thing is already determined. You see the other side of it, Sarah there. Yes, that's the point I'm making. So even where, if in your mind's eye or by faith, you believe that this is how things will be. Now we have gone into predeterminism to answer our friend. Even if that is it, there is a part you have to play. You won't know whether this is it. So you do what the instruction says. You want to make a baby with a husband, properly married? You don't go and stand by ATM machine and punch 2 babies times 3 to get babies. No. You don't get it by tongues. No. Tongues can do the unraveling of whatever. You have to get busy. God has set structures, principles, how to get a child, how to get your corn to grow. That is the principle that the scientists, empirical scientists, and others like you and I are on opening. We are discovering them to know how to actualize what has already been said. So you have a role to play. Otherwise, what has been said won't happen. Oh, Tom, I'm telling you, you will make God a liar. But the Bible says, let God be true. So what? What's the connection? So it's even where things are determined to be so, okay, there are choices that have to be made to be able to actualize that which, if you believe, has already been determined. And that is why it is a conversation between what? Choices and what? Determinism all the time. You can't say it is always a matter of the choices you make. You've made choices. You can do everything sometimes, make the good choices, and it doesn't yield nothing, my friend will say, nothing. And sometimes, when you make those choices, it yields something. So it is a conversation between what is determined to be so and how you make choices to fit into what is determined to be so, even in faith. You don't sit and say, God says the barren will not stay in his land. Father, I can't be barren. I can't be barren. And that is what we do Monday to Friday, 30 days a month. Whenever the brother or your legally married husband is waiting for you, mirror name, Father, the barren, how will you get pregnant? I do want to be married, Virgin Mary the second. Go and do what you have to do, no? After you have said the prayer, go and do that one too. Because that is how the choices that you have to make. You see that the options available for the child to come. Okay, hey, what's up with it? Hey, am I teaching children's service? Are you not an adult? Go ahead, what's up with it?
Madam.
Go ahead.
Madam.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Hello, madam.
Oh, I can hear you. What's up with it?
This Prince. I'm trying to join, but like you've not let me in yet.
Oh, it's not true.
So I'm using
nothing. Nobody has been logged out. Ask your question. Ask your question, sir. Do you have a question? Oh, okay. Let's take other questions if there are. I want to lower all the hands now. And then if there's a question, the hands can shoot up again quickly. Okay. So that's Kingsley. Can we go ahead, Kingsley? I have not left anybody anywhere. The class is open. So there is no restriction. If you are coming in, you should get in straight. There are over 120 something people online. Go ahead, say Kumi.
Madam, please, sorry, that was a mistake.
Okay, it's fine. Any other question? Okay, so how about the third one was the Jetty one. Concept of a person. You see that there's so much relevance with the current state of affairs. When we were told that beyond the physical, there has to be something else. Person, think I'd rather it would just be the body that is lying there in the rubbles like that. So heart-wrenching. That is all there is to the human being. Hey, if you think that way, they have a big problem. There has to be something beyond the physical. Prior to our existence and after we exist, if you are conscious of that a little, just a little, not big, you won't steal money in politics like some people do. They do it almost with left, right. Their head is inside, family and friends. Look at Russia and Ukraine. What at all are they pulling hairs over? Bomb thrown here. Just this afternoon, I saw the Gaza Strip, the Palestine and something conflict. Me, when I started listening to this, I was a baby. Me could have clocked 40 plus. It is still ongoing. What at all? What at all are people fighting over? Okay, think very deeply about it. If human person is just honam, and there's nothing else beyond the physical body, it will have a lot of implications on how we think and how we live in this our world. Economics, politics, distribution of resources. Why is it that your product, you can add just about 1 city, 2 cities, you still break even and even have a lot of profit behind it, and yet you are adding 10 cities to one? When the farmer who did the farm or who cultivated the crops didn't exploit people like that, and you think it is just the one who is fooling someone's husband who is a demon, wicked people like that. We should all together, myself included, yourself included, influence our politics, our economics, the haircuts that we are giving, that grandpas and grandmas, grandmas are well, now I think they stop deprecating. Think about it. Nipa, we are beyond just body. And because of that, I can be teaching beings that are beyond, I am teaching beings that are not just body sitting there. That should have an influence. And so when someone has sunsum yare, people believe that this is the Akan concept of a person according to Jetty we discussed. Sunsum yare, spiritual sickness. It is not in your place to say that it's not true or it's true. Yours is to focus on what you believe in if you don't believe that, because people have gotten well when the sunsum is assisted with maybe sunsum jare or something like that, or there's some transaction done to set the sunsum or the okra of the person free. That is a gist on the Jetty one. The personal identity from John Locke, which is the second half of it, tells you that trying to establish what distinguishes person A from person B is not a straightforward matter, sir. Maybe that one, if you stretch it a little, you can go. But when I want to establish that the same Agbedam that I knew in level 100 is too close by, when he was a baby on his mother's lap, it's the same Agbedam that I can engage in class like that. This grown brother, yes, with hair on his cheek, and yes, you see this tiny baby picture that I see? Yes, he's the one. Wow. How do you establish sameness? Some say because it's the same body he has had. It's just that the body has transformed to this. That's the bodily view. Finito. So it renders the notion of identity as established by what? The body. So I ask, what about if you lose your thumb when you're going to vote for election? Someone said, well, if I lose my thumb, that's why they can use the eye. So now we do biometric. So if I transform the body through plastic surgery, one after the other, until every part of my body, including the heart, is transformed, am I still me? Well, over to you, Joelati. So John Locke presents what? An immaterial version, not material matter, which is the body, but an immaterial one. What is it? What, according to John Locke, is that which makes a person who he or she is? What establishes personal identity according to John Locke? Raise your hand if you know. Nobody knows. Is that what you're saying? Nobody knows what establishes personal identity. Only two people.
Madam, could you please repeat yourself?
What establishes personal identity according to John Locke? We are revising. Oh, I want the hands to go up. I'm assessing the class. So if you know, don't sit and say, oh, but dog, this one, you know that we know. I don't know. I don't presume to know. Some few more hands can give me confidence. So you are over 250. The last time I checked, you people have all come back to do fellow. Yo, Maba, Montanasi, we are happy to have you, but engage the content. Okay, what is it? I want to call Rutherford. Very good, Rutherford. J.
Madam, consciousness.
Very good. What's the next one? So the same you can go ahead. Yes, self-consciousness and then
memory.
Well done. That's correct. I knew that you people knew it already. I just doing that B movement with me, which is fine. So that should settle the score, the matter with topics 2 and 3. Okay. You know the problems we can have with. Let me just check. What problem can we have with log? So now you are 270. Hey. Okay. What problem can we have with log? Ernestina Akusika. With logs view 2. And I see now, what criticism can you raise against Locke's view of personal identity, please, so that we move on? Zuwaira, do you want to help us, please? And Estina, your microphone was still muted. That's why I was calling you over and over again. Zuwaira, your hand is up. What problem can you have against Locke, who argues that a person's identity is established by 3 things? The fact that person is conscious of herself. Person is conscious of himself or herself. A person is self-conscious of himself or herself. And the person remembers. Nestina, go ahead.
Okay, so when we talk, for instance, the memory, anything
Yes.
can happen at any time. The person can lose his or her memory, and with
Very
that,
good.
it can identify the person as.
Very good. Amnesia can come up. Someone, God forbid, can fall off a building, and after that, they can't remember anything again. God forbid that for any one of us. It can be so disheartening. But even if we don't go through that extreme sense of losing our memory, we can also forget. I've not lost it, but we have forgotten. It is so real. You can forget. We do forget. I don't remember what I did Saturday, 11:49. Just this Saturday, 11:49 a.m. What did I do? How will I remember? Unless there was a particular thing that can help me remember. So we don't remember everything. Therefore, by that discussion, we have changed. We are different people now. If we went by that, okay, very good. I see 2 hands up. If it's not, I think they were to react to my question, so that we'll go quickly to the third revision. We are revising. Then it takes us to the individualism one. So here we are. We have done a revision of the problem of free willism versus determinism and moral responsibility. Why? You see, this is why the question of free willism and determinism was discussed the way it was done. Holding people morally responsible for their actions will mean that they should have contributed somewhat to that action. Otherwise, you can't hold them responsible for the rightness or wrongness of what they did, morality. But you say, oh, you didn't do well. Did you do that? Hey, that's your lecturer. Did you talk that way to her? You shouldn't have done that. Don't say, oh, I think what will be, will be. Oh, so the question came from my mouth. Okay. No one has said that to me. I just want to use that as an example. It just came from your mouth. Hey, oh, you didn't do well. Blaming and praising people only make meaning and is appropriate where the person could have chosen to do otherwise. Freedom of choice. So we saw that. We've just done lecture 3 revision again, problem of the self, the account concept of a person. Okay, and then that takes us to the problem of the community versus the individual. Person and community in African Jetty, then the Miles paper. What was your response to the question I asked the class? I'm projecting from, I think I gave you test and quiz. Where did I give it to you, class? Oh, this is your in-person assessment. Did I give you the questions to engage? Let me see, where are you? Where are the reps? Sarah, please, did I give you the group work to do? And where was it posted? So that we engage those questions quickly. The reading assignments, you did them at test and quizzes, right? Very good. So this is it.
Yeah, test and quizzes, madam.
Okay. Anyone read for us? Anyone to read for us, please? Emmanuel Freeman, go ahead, sir.
Please, I can't see the question.
Can you see my screen, please?
No, madam.
No, please. I can only see the. I can only see the.
Madam, please, we can see.
Yeah, we can see, madam.
Hold on.
Yeah, we can see, madam.
Can someone see part one, question one?
Yes, please.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay. Okay. No problem. No problem. Freeman, touch your gadget a little, okay? Let me have Deborah Lago read for me. Deborah, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Doc.
Good afternoon, madam.
Part 1, question 1. It would be meaningless from an African perspective to ask the question, does the individual's life belong to him or does it belong to the community? Briefly explain why in your own words, in a paragraph of between 500 to 600 words, giving examples to ground your view.
Very good. Everybody has done the work. So I suppose that if you got this question, you have a response for it. What is the demand of the question? So perhaps as I discuss with you, then you can fill in the gaps that you may have. It will be meaningless from an African perspective to ask the question, does the individual's life belong to him or does it belong to the community? Briefly explain why. The simple gist there is this. If you read the paper, how many of you read the paper? The Individualism-communitarianism debate. Raise your hand, let me see. You are 270. When I saw it, I said, hey, main campus, you are over 600. And she said, I'm with me. Then I laughed. We'll do fine, don't worry. Okay, very good. So you read the paper. You would see that the case being made is between what, two extremes, supposedly. Okay, those advocating for a respect for the individual, her rights, her autonomy, her freedoms, her what, uniqueness, her choices. They said that should be paramount. Some even say that is what matters. There isn't any other thing. So you see that that embodies the right debate and discussions. Whenever we are discussing, let's say the LGBTQ discussion, for example, it borders on rights. When the Achimota school versus the Rastafarian issue came up, it was rights versus communality, or if you like, clash of rights. It's always a question of rights, where you are pursuing the individual, supposedly, and I use the individual in quotes because of what was in the content, because of the individual's views. So when you hear an advocacy made for the individual, then it suggests that you are pursuing or you are asking for rights, sometimes to the detriment of what? Communal belonging, communal relation, communality, what the community in question also requires. So I cannot say because I'm feeling hot, so I'm coming into the lecture hall, which is a public space, in my bikini, which is offensive to the setting. Therefore, the other extreme says you cannot pursue rights. Now, what do they then come and say? There comes the community, the communitarian argument. It says that it is the community that defines a person's being. So the text or the reference I gave you looked at these two extremes. And one of the views there is what I've asked you to explain in the question there. It's a reading assignment. So we will see whether you got the understanding from the text, and then we will reconcile it for you to see. Does the individual's life belong to him, or does it belong to the community? This is an African perspective being presented. For that author who is representing an African perspective, this can't even be, you can't even ask whether the individual's life belongs to him or it is not intelligible. They can't understand that. So because according to the text, can hardly say me, I, myself. When you speak that way in an African setting, this is the communitarian argument captured in the text there. When you speak I, myself, me, it's almost offensive. It's like, hey, why are you saying me? Come and stand there talking me, I, myself, me, I, why? That's so un-African. The African likes to say we will see to it. And the person who will do it is one. So we'll see to it. So if you are even a president and you talk and you say my government, then people will be looking at you. Your government, is it your personal property? It's as if it's not entertained. Now that we asked you see that I've done the same thing. I asked you to explain why this is the case for the African setting that was discussed. Why? In your own words, and use examples to make the point. I'm sure you can do that. And you did. So I'll read your essays. If I pull it up a little more, we'll see those who got the question, this particular question, and how they answered it. Okay. But I think 16 people got that one. We don't want to expose you online. So we'll move quickly to the second one. Any questions with this? So this was the first part of the text showing you that the African, typical version of African sociopolitical thought thinks of what Africans as what communitarian, whilst the typical view for Western thought will think of Western view as what individualistic, two extremes. Then the pessimist comes in to mediate to tell them that the two perspectives are not disagreeing at all. Okay, so this is the first part of the question to help us read the text. Africans don't think the individual's life belong to him. You say we don't want the woman you have brought for us. We will not marry this woman. You don't worry about her. You and who? That's the question. That raises questions, okay, of individuality. Come again, please, my dear. Somebody spoke. Was it to me? I didn't hear you either. Okay. All right, let's go on. Please, so the next one. Yes, that can't be, but can you hear me? The one who just spoke, please.
Yes, please, I can hear you clearly.
Yes, so I think that the lady should just check her sound on her gadget. And I've been speaking for over an hour now. I don't know when you started not hearing me. Okay, so that can be a good sign to help you. Let's go on quickly to question 2, unless someone has a question on trying to make give a response to the first question and the reaction I've given. Anybody? I'll lower all the hands and be able to see you when you raise your hand again. Right. So does someone want to react to the first question? Okay, not. Then we move on to the second one quickly. What does it say? Question 2 says what? Please read for me. Question 2, yes. Please go ahead.
The typically African conception of being human could be expressed as I am related, therefore we are, instead of the Cartesian definition of human beings as an entity merely defined by thought. I think, therefore I am. Briefly explain the distinction between these two claims in a paragraph of between 500 and 600 words, giving examples to ground your view.
Very good. Can I have a reaction from you? This is a straightforward one. The typically African conception of being human could be expressed as I am related, therefore we are. My being is defined in connection to the being of others. Whose mother are you? Or whose daughter are you? Where do you come from? Comes out strongly when you are dealing with an African than who are you? The who are you would even be pregnant with the thinking about what? Your connectedness. This is what the text told you when it was gathering the communitarian perspective. Okay, if you compare that to the Cartesian philosophy, it asks you who a human being is. Say, oh, I know that I am based on the fact that what I think. It is I alone. Remember Descartes. I alone can establish my own existence. How do I do that? If I think, then it makes me know that I exist. It's not if I'm related. So just to show or to buttress the point that relationality, communality, relatedness, connectedness. I am because we are, and since we are, therefore I am. Who said that? Raise your hand if you know the answer. Who said I am because we are, and since we are, therefore I am? If you saw the text, you see. Raph, I disabled your mic. You're disturbing. Victoria Tete, go ahead. Who? Okay, Deborah. No, George Yorson. George, who said I am because we are, and since we are, therefore I am? You are all muted, so you will have to unmute to respond. This is reading. So if people don't read, they are actually have read. Yes, sir. Yeah, George, go ahead. George Yoursen, who said that in the text, please? Teresa Bannerman. Teresa, go ahead. I think George is having issues with the gadget. Go ahead, Teresa. Oh, won't you say this thing so that I move on? The time is not waiting for you. Oh? You don't know who made that comment in the paper? I am because we are, and since we are, therefore I am. The hands are up. But when I call people, go ahead, say, go ahead, George. Azari Richard, go ahead. Who knows the answer? Just unmute and answer. Because people know it when you call them. I don't know if it is a reception issue or they are not sure of the answer or something. So if you know it, just unmute and answer. And let's move on. I am because we are. And since we are, therefore I am. Pierre, go ahead. Sorry, please.
Madam Mbiti.
John Mbiti, thank you. So we move on. Look at how long it took you. This is main campus. Half of the class will shout it. Look at how long it took the whole class. When I say it, you don't understand. It will influence how you are receiving delivery. So set up, my people, okay? It's John Mbiti. It's straightforward. It's not anything contentious at all. And he, like others, like him, authors like Ifeanyi Menkichi, you would have seen the Western communitarian thinkers. We label them communitarian, quote and unquote, McIntyre, Charles Taylor. It's not Charles Taylor, the Liberian, former Liberian president. No, this is a Western thinker called Charles Taylor. All these thinkers that you find in the text is there's a soft version. I just want to keep the questions on the screen. I would have gone back to it for you to see. Are advocating for a certain sense of what? Emphasis on the sharedness, communality, relatedness. But personism's argument, or the personist argument that is being made, is that these extreme views, both the individualist view and the communitarian view, have flaws in them. They think they are disagreeing, they are not. Because no matter how you push for individual and their rights and their autonomy, it will never be meaningfully done outside of what? Community. Rights are meaningful within the context of what? Community. It's community that gives you options from which to choose so that your rights will make sense. Okay? Before you became a human being at all, to be able to have rights, you would already have belonged to a certain communal setting. Kwame Jetty argues. Onipa free besia, obesi onipa krom. When the human being descends from above, he descends into a human habitation. Aristotle says man is what naturally a social being. The social there is actually a member of a polis, a political being. You belong to a collective. Before your eyes open and then you start making choices, you would already have belonged to. In fact, your being is the product of a communal interaction. Mommy and daddy have to come together, relate based on context and all, before you come into the world and come and demand for rights. So the individualists would have to necessarily admit that the rights, the autonomy, the uniqueness, etc., that you're advocating for will not make sense unless it is what? Situated within a context, a shared context, where it can be a community of a church, a nation, a family group, etc., etc. That is what the pessimist is telling the individualists. Then the pessimist turns and tells the communitarian that you too, as you emphasize the need for community, you have to realize that the community is constituted by what? Individuals, quote and unquote, individual persons. That means you cannot talk as if the woman are going to bring for us to marry. That's how you are saying it. When you sleep and wake up, she'll be lying on you to your bed. No. She'll be on my bed. I will have to endure or enjoy with the person throughout my life, even though you have my interest at heart. It is my choice. You see what is going on? So you have to respect that, even in guiding and seeking for our collective interest. There is a sense in which there's individuality. Thought, critical reflection, what have you, are not communal things. They are individual ingenuity, creativity. It's an individual thing. We don't have a collective brain. Where is that? The brain for Ghana. Where is it? So that we go and tweak it a little. It's individuals that make decisions. That's the point I'm making. So individuals here referring to what? Persons, me. I will think about the thing, create an idea, share it, and then it will be bought into by others to become our view. That is the reason why you have to allow for creativity. You have to allow for internal criticism. All these are useful for building a society. So even in pursuing community, you cannot do it without emphasizing individuality. That is what the pessimist is asking the communitarian. And we say, yes, you are right. So the pessimist says, therefore, if that is the case, then is there anything you people are disagreeing about? I don't see a disagreement. You have to only clarify and use the appropriate language. Someone read the third question on your screen. It deals with that. Mohammed, Rabiu. Very quickly. Amina. Who can read what is on the screen for us? The third question.
Please, I can't see anything on the screen.
I can
Who
see.
can see? If you can see, read it. If you keep your gadget, please listen. If you keep your gadget for a while, like you do with your phone, and you don't touch it, you know what happens. Your screen will dim. It doesn't mean what was there is not there. It is there. You should be touching the screen. Ama Rebecca, I have disabled your mic. Please, the feedback is not helping me. Okay, so you won't be able to unmute. My dear, or you were the one going to read for me, Ama Rebecca. If you were the one going to read for me, then let me unmute it. But I don't like the feedback. Okay, so I've allowed your mic. Please go ahead and read for me. Thank you.
Part 1, question 3.
Thank you. Yeah.
Miles considers the connection between Western individualists and African communitarians a linguistic problem. Briefly explain how she accounts for this in a paragraph of between 500 and 600 words, drawing on examples she uses.
Yes. So that is the point. The point then is, as you read the text, you see this is a linguistic problem, says Miles, the pessimist. He says that disagreement, the seeming contention between these two extremes is just about language. They shouldn't, so the individualist shouldn't call a human person the individual. It will generate problems because the human person is not just an individual. The human person is just what he or she is, a person. She has rights, autonomy, freedoms, choices, the ability to make choices. She's unique, etc. These are all the individual part of her, individuality. Yet she's at once somebody's daughter or son, mother or husband, father. See that? She's at once, so you don't choose to be related to someone. I'm talking about biological. Then she's necessarily, naturally, a member of society. You don't choose that either. You're not a stone. So you can't go to work. I go and teach, and then by the time I come home, I've decided by my own individual choice. See what I'm saying? Change my face from that of a human being to a tiger. Then I come home. You are coming home. Have you forgotten that even though you have your choices that you should pursue, Your children also have an entitlement to you. You don't go and change your face and come, where is their mother? All you say is my right to fresh air. So you have entered the public, you are a public property, as well as being what, an individual property. Think of it that way. That's the whole point. So the person is a complex blend. When you talk person, that is what, a complex blend. It's a mixture that you can't extract individuality out of and communality out of. No, it's not the individual. I'm not the individual who is trying to be brought into society to accommodate, or the community is trying to accommodate me. No, I am a blend of the two. You are at once your mother, your father, your church, your neighborhood, your schools that you have attended, the things that have happened to you. So when you are employing someone into the company and the person is female and a Muslim sister, you should get ready to see hijab. You should be ready to give maternity leave. It is part of what the person is. Person, collective, not the individual. That is when you start getting angry, when the person comes in and says, boss, please, I think I will apply for maternity. You say, oh, you do why? We just employed you yesterday, you are pregnant. She is a person, a collective box like that. Inside it, individuality womb, communality womb. So some of the demands, if you want to keep it beyond office hours for official work, you will make a better impact if you have plans for mother care, because you know that she has the quality, she's smart individuality, she's creative. You need her to think through the advertising options before tomorrow morning. But you must at the same time remember that she has to pick children, go and cook food. So can you help with an arrangement that way? That's a good manager, conscious of what? People's personhood, not just people being individuals. You are not dealing with an individual. If you talk against the person's background, let's say I'm a what Fanti or something, you are just there open Fanti and I didn't point on fact. Let's use the religion thing. And you are just there speaking against the person's religious beliefs. Mind you are getting into trouble. That is what the conception of personhood does. So you approach matters holistically, not in a myopic way. You just think that all that you see of the human being sitting in front of you is her individuality. You think she doesn't have communality? So why do you call her the individual when she's bigger than just being individual and she has communal ties? That is the question. That is the concern that Miles puts in. He says that, so don't reference that the thing is a linguistic problem that goes into what? The conceptualization. So you reference the person, you use the reference, you call the thing a dog, and then you name it as such and you live with it as it is a dog. But what if you called it my partner? Then you will deal with the thing differently. Therefore what? Therefore change the referencing. And then you will see immediately that you address both the concern of individualism and the concern of communitarianism, which is what? If you synthesize the two views, it is what? The individualist is advocating for what? Recognition of, read this question, please, respectfully. Sister, who was reading for me? Read it quickly. Communitarianism and blah, 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 blah. If you can read, just unmute and read. Anybody in the class and keep the class going.
Okay.
Communitarianism and individualism may not necessarily represent African and Western social culture thoughts respectively. From the referred text, identify authors and their viewpoints that support the preceding statement. Your response should be in a paragraph of between 500 and 600 words.
Very good. So the thinking is, because this is alternated, you know that the questions were randomized. The system will pick and give you one, give another person one, and give. That is why you all have the caveats there. It should be between 600 and 500. That way there is a balance. a certain degree of fairness. I'm saying that the thinking in the past would have been that what when you hear communitarianism, it's African, and then when you hear individualism, it is what? Western. But if you saw the text, you would see that we're able to pull out Western thinkers that were advocating for communitarian emphasis. They were asking that give room for the representation of community. Let us see the need to not just be thinking about rights in isolation, to the disregard, to the detriment of what? Community. You can't be doing right. So you wear what you want, because after all, it's your body. You cook midnight in a shared compound, because after all, you worked hard to get your money. So what? So you open the sound of your car very late in the evening. You are blowing the music, boom, 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 because it is your compound. You built a house. You don't know that someone too can start splashing water in their compound because they bought the water. Someone too can throw their bin in front of their house. It is in front of their own house, but you will suffer because the flies will move from there and come to you. Everybody has a right. Where your rights end, someone else's own begins. When you talk right, someone has to produce the outcome that will make your right meaningful. So if you have a right to say education, someone has a responsibility to make education available to you so that your right will be meaningfully met. In the same way, you have a responsibility towards someone else so that he or she can also enjoy their rights. So they go hand in hand. That is what we have said all this while. And so you see that there are Western thinkers advocating for what? Some communal emphasis. So it is no longer Western being individualist on one side and communitarians, African being communitarian on the other. You could also have African thinkers that are strictly, pushing for individuality. Make room for some individuality. Kwame Appiah is one. Jetty tries to moderate it, bring in some individuality to make room for a better communitarian. That's why he advocates for a moderate communitarianism. Communitarianism that is moderate, liberal, not very strict, just to allow for some individuality. Then I ask you to tell me from the text, authors that are maybe Western, that is advocating for communitarianism. Find them. And then authors that are individualists, yet African. What are the views that they present? I just did for Jetty, I showed you. I just did for Kwame Appiah. The views that they present, which bridges the gap between the former extremely communitarian Africa versus extremely individualist West. Okay, so you should be able to find them. If your readings didn't give you that, it means you haven't done proper reading. So you see the questions I'm doing, they should guide you to engage the text, to make sure that you are seeing these things. Okay, question 5. Any questions, please? Any questions? You know your IA date, right? Interim assessment date. Not yet. It's almost around the corner.
No,
so yes, it's in my armpit. They've given it to me, but I'm waiting for confirmation whether you can use the Sakai, the UGCS. If they confirm it, then I'll advertise. If they don't confirm that, it will influence the nature of the questions, and so I'll change the date. But it will still be in the 8th week. That one I told you is in the 8th week. We are in the 6th week. So that should give you some good idea of what to look out for. Quickly, please read for me. Thank you.
Okay, madam. The notion of community understood as causal dependency between the individual and her community, defended by individualists like Gautier, does not meet the standard according to communitarian thinkers. Briefly explain why, in your own words, in a paragraph of between 500 and 600 words.
Yes, this is a bit technical, so let me explain it to you. So it's simply saying that those who think of individualism, communitarianism debate, they are arguing, but then they think that, oh, but the individualist also makes room for community. I mean, every individualist recognizes the community to a large extent. The problem is if you think of community as useful only insofar as it benefits the individual, that's an instrumental view of community, causal dependency. So the value of community is measured by how much it benefits the individual. You haven't given community its place, that it is valuable in itself. You see, we should pursue communal well-being just for its sake. But you say, oh, insofar as when we do that, it will make the individual okay. It means that it is ultimately the individual's point of view or individual's well-being you are looking for. If you think of how Kant says, don't use human beings as a means to an end. Don't use a human being to give you a certain end. When you do that, you are devaluing human beingness, the dignity of the human person. Don't do that. So think of it that way. Don't use community. You say, oh, let's make sure that community, our collective welfare is pursued so that every individual will ultimately be. No. If you do that, it means ultimately it will be individualism you are pursuing, not the collective good, the common good. But ultimately it will be individuals that you are trying to, pursue a good for. So causal dependency. When you say the notion of community understood as causal dependency, that the individual's welfare depends on the community's welfare. When you think of community as the means by which you will fulfill individual well-being, you are thinking of community as the channel, the instrument through which the individual will benefit. It means that ultimately it is the individual's well-being you are pursuing without regard for the collective good. That is not acceptable. That is not what communitarians were arguing for. They were arguing for pursuing community or communal welfare for its own sake. It is good to have a cohesive, integrated community. That is it. Not that, so that when we get a cohesive society, then the human persons, or I am even saying the human person, the individual will benefit. It boils down back to what? Individuality. Very good. Question 6. I want us to be able to get through all the questions because they will guide the reading. I picked them to capture the thoughts. This one says, according to Miles, the concept of the individual she criticizes is not the same as the concept of individuality, which she defends. Briefly explain the distinction she makes between the two. So if you were speaking in reaction to the paper we studied, how would you distinguish the individual, in quotes, and the idea of what? Individuality. One is defended, the other one is rejected. You should be able to do this. Otherwise, you won't be able to answer some of the questions. Okay? So I'm sure you know. Do you want to try it? If you ask, people will sit 1 hour. And I'll let you try it, then I check. But I won't tell you the answer. To be unfair to main campus people, I didn't tell them answers. We discussed. So when you give a reaction, then I'm able to throw light on it. That one is, I'm not the one who came to tell you the answers, but you asked. Okay, so think around that. The author, what's the expression? Argues against using the expression the individual and what it connotes. The individual representing the human person is wrong because you can't say the human person is the community. So why do you call the human person the individual? It's a person, a blend of the two. It is fufu, not cassava, not plantain. It's the blend. When you pan, it's not the flour, it's not the sugar, it's not the margarine. The human person is the cake. You baked it. So there's flour in it, there's sugar in it, there's margarine in it, but you can't take the margarine out again. What you have now is the cake. Baked individuality and communality all blended together. It's what the human person is. So when you see Nahima She is a blend. Suppose she's the queen of her hometown. You can't take that out of her being and her individual. That's why she can't eat in public. Don't say, oh, feel free after all you had it. No, no. She's a representation of several things all at once. Unique, yes. But also what? Related in a way that you want another to come and sit with you to play draft. Who told you? He's a complex blend now. That is it. That's the point being made. So you can't go giving him high five and rubbing his hair because he was your friend at school. Who told you? It's not the status per se, but just to use as an imagery to help you see what we are saying. So the person is at once a mother and a daughter and a sister and a colleague and a woman. So when they are talking women matters internationally, she'll talk some. At the same time, when they talk faith matters, maybe she's a Muslim, and they mention Muslims worldwide, she belongs to that community. And perhaps when they talk academia, she can all of a sudden join the community of academics to talk all at once, no boundaries. So if the communitarian comes and says it is the community that makes you, which community is the communitarian referring to now? Which of them? Ghana or West Africa or Asante or philosophy department or Christians or women or mothers or academics? You see the different levels of interconnected communality. There comes the corrected language. That's what you see on your screen now. It's question 7. Communality, not community. The community. Which is the community? Which particular one? There isn't any, because we are influenced and affected by different levels of relationality. This is what the text advocates for. It tells you use that and mean that, rather than saying it is the community that defines your being, blah, blah, blah. It's not defensible. So that's what you see on your screen. The author critiques the use of the community as that which is defining our being and says that it should rather be communality. And if we did that, then it will deal with the concern that the communitarian has without undermining the very important aspect of her being a person. Look at this one too. So you will see that the term the individual has been ambiguously used. Ambiguous means, like critical thinking, you learn that. The two perspectives, communitarians, individualists, are using the term the individual in different ones. One time when they use the individual, they mean the human person, the concrete human person. And then before they go on, you see that they are using it to mean your individuality, your uniqueness, your subjectivity, your rights. A shift from being the person to his or her dimension, various dimensions that she can have. And then it can shift again. I asked you to outline 3. And the textbook clearly tells you that the 3 ambiguous uses. If you read, you see there. I said the textbook, the reference tells you 3 ambiguous uses, that's what makes the debate fruitful, as if somebody are really contending. It's just a shift of the meaning from one to the other. The author identifies that and says if that is corrected, it can help make a headway in the discussion, clarify what is actually in contention. So then it brings us to what the personism view is. And what advantage does it propose to have over the other 2? Well, it proposes to say that view, thinking of the human being as a person having individuality and communality as aspects of one entity, makes for what? Achieving, or if you like, meeting the needs of the individualist and at the same time meeting the needs of the communitarian and taking out all the chaff. Simply put, that is it. You are able to do what the individualist is pushing for: respect rights, autonomy, uniqueness, what have you, and yet at the same time emphasize and project what belongingness, relatedness, which is the heartbeat of the communitarian. Okay. Outline 3 arguments Miles makes against individualism. That's straightforward. Do we have a community mind against individualism? Okay. Do you have choices that are hanging in the air? The choices are given by society, community. so that your rights will be meaningful only in the context of society. That's one of the cases I make against individualism. You can look out for the rest. Okay, then one case I make against communitarians is we don't have a collective mind. So stop this we. Pursue what is good for us as a collective, but respect the fact that it is individual persons, you see how I'm speaking, that will think and create. So if you make it we, that's why we can't discover anything in a setting that is always talking. We will see through, we will see through. You can't go to space. You can't design anything. Creativity, so low. Why? We are not encouraging it. Initiative taking, ingenuity, critical abilities. You have to allow people to ask questions about matters. When they ask, it is a good sign. Don't say that you alone, you want to, you alone, one person. Yes, it has to be you alone. One person went to space, and then others have joined. Outline 3 arguments Miles made. This one is against the communitarian one. I've talked about it. I gave you one. Find the others. They are there. There are plenty in the text. If you don't read there, you'll be frustrated. You should read it. They will come in the exam, Papa. All the discussions we've had. And then the very last one. How different is this Miles' view from Jetty's moderate communitarianism view? This one is the last part of the paper. We talk about it. The moderate communitarian view still thinks of the human being as an individual, the individual standing here, then the community standing here. So one to the right, one to the left. And then it is the advocacy is, please, community, allow the individual space to also make rights and what? Liberties and autonomies meaningful. Allow some space for the individual. That is what the moderate communitarian view says. Personism says, no, we don't have community here and the individual here. What we have is only one thing, a human being who has dimensions of individuality and communality. So you don't have the community that is defining anything. Communities are also interrelated. So what you have is communal relations. So I can be in Ghana here and be communally related to someone in Zaire who has what? Who is a woman. When we are talking the woman community, it will affect me. When the guy we are told beat the woman to death in Nigeria, the musician, Ekueme, look at the whole world, women all over, how we felt and talked about it. Christian Achu, is he your father's son or my mother's brother? No, but see how we were. I cried, but I couldn't even teach. I remembered my father and cried into it. Charlie, you can relate to him as what? A national, he comes from your nation. Someone who is not Ghanaian would also think of him as, oh, my football star. Another person might think of him as someone who pursues takes care of foster home. So he sees him or her as well, a benevolent person. We relate at that level. So we can be communally bound to each other without necessarily having to be from Asante or Ghana or this together. That is the whole point. So if you say Arab, you see the number of people you will deal with. And yet the next minute we may be talking gender. And so the community will change. That is the reason why you don't want to talk about the individual versus the community, but you should talk about the person. Very good. Any questions? Please ask your question, Sarah Santua. I think one of the Sarahs or one of the Santuas drew our attention to discussing individualism and communitarianism. I hope that we have done it fine now. Go ahead, my lady.
Please, the question we asked, you were saying that and if you've not really read, you have to go back and read. So I was asking you to suggest an appropriate way of reading the papers you presented, as that we can at least able to answer every question you pose to us in the examination.
The whole text will come. Yes, plus every other thing we've done, it will come. See the question? Yeah. So if you look at the question, I'm sorry, I'm missing part of what you are saying. So let me shut up. I'm listening.
I'll say this because see, as the have been presented, it feels like you've not like tackled everything as like yes, as individuals. So I was asking if you could propose a way to read the article effectively, like
there's no way to read it than to read it, oh, my lady. You said if I could propose a way to read it, the way to read it is to read it. And I said, I'm Benza. The way to read it is just to read it. Don't read. I'm taking you there. See, this is the text. It's not heavy, cry. It's very light. Resource to. I should give you some apoy on how to read it. Main campus folks did a good job. I'll lie to you. You can ask those who slip through once in a while. Sure, they won't even let you sit down. They will be talking from this angle. I'm speaking generally, okay? There will always be remnants of Israel everywhere. They are there. Those who, even if you give them the answers card, they will say, how should I write down the answer? Oh dear, just a minute, I'm done. Our time is out. I'll just show you. The individual and the individualism-communitarianism debate. It's there. So read it, 23 pages. Because I use single, we didn't do double on a page. If we did double on a page, it would have been 12 pages or something. We printed them big for you to be able to see easily. Okay, almost there now. This is it. This is it. So you will see that, and they are titled. Where is it? The abstract summarizes everything for you nicely. Then here it is. Sister, let me see if this is what will help you. So the first section tells you the disagreement in the communitarianism individualism debate. A recap. We are recapping what their disagreement is. Take your time and read all this to show you what are they pulling hairs over. Then I use first African perspective. Look at the paragraph. Tell you what Menkiti, Senghor, others like that have argued that we Africans, we don't talk with I, Christ. You don't even mention I in public. When you mention, people will laugh at you. Then you show you the contrasts, what the West will say. I think, therefore I am. I. Mind is that we defines as veil of ignorance. All those things, as if you can make decisions without society and the meaningfulness, the meaning that society prescribes. Take note. So all this is recapping the debate. Michael Sandel, look at the names that are there. You have to read it. Walzer. All these are authors. Just to show you the two extremes. Then the second section says examining the individual in the communitarianism individualism debate. Look at it. We are examining the notion of the individual, the phrase, the term, the individual, that is the bone of contention between the two. We examine to show that the thing shouldn't be in the individual. What the individualist was advocating for was individuality, not the individual, because the human person is not what? The community. You don't call the human person the community, but communality is part of her being. But you want to call him the individual because individuality is part of a being. That's the problem. So we examine to expose that. See, the whole session there is doing that. Okay, so maybe that can help you. Then we go to the third section. What does it say? It shows you the ambiguities in the communitarianism critique of individualism and the implications that there's an ambiguity I told you earlier. They use the phrase to mean this. Another time they use it to mean that. Another time they use it to mean this in the debate too. So the debaters themselves don't realize that they have shifted from one meaning of the word to another. And as if you are saying okra, meaning the soul, the next minute they said okra, meaning the cat. But they don't realize they are just equivocating. So that is what is diagnosed and exposed in this section of the paper. Watch. Then now the author diagnoses and shows the consequences. See, that is also what is going on here. You should just read it. Okay, diagnosis and then the way forward. Someone even says, you said it's community. Who told you that? It is always one person's view that is accepted by all the group. That's Nozick, Robert Nozick. He says, don't come and tell me it's the community. We have decided that you will no longer marry our daughter. Who is the we? So we went to meet. By all means, it will be someone that will propose it. Then others will see reason in what they propose. There is no collective brain, people. That's the guy's argument. So he thinks we should pursue individuality and stop this in the name of community that people are using to bully us. If you read, you see it there. Then the pessimist response comes in. Pessimism as a response, what it is, or what the claim of pessimism is, and how, look here, how it differs from moderate communitarianism. Is there. You see, here. And then you come to a beautiful conclusion. Very, very crisp around it. They conclude, and then your references. Okay, my lady, so I hope that what I did would give you a firm grip of it. If you just read it, and you will do fine. Any other question, please? Sarah, is it okay? Anna, well,
Anna, thank you. It's okay.
Yeah, you at least it gives you a fair idea. You can share it if you have reading groups. You can share it amongst yourselves. One will take section 1, one will take section 2, one will take section 3. Then you read. Then the ones that read section 1 will come and discuss what they read. Then those that read section 2 come and discuss. That's what you should spend time on. So I think you can coordinate that amongst yourselves and read. Right. The same thing is what you should do with multiculturalism and the notion of cultural identity. That one would form the thrust of our discussion when we meet in person, God willing, next week. Then in class, we will agree on the makeup time. We have one class to make up. I want to discuss it when we are in class together. Then we'll be sure. So it's 2 to 4, not 2:30 to 4:30. I think the timetable I have in my book, I don't know what has happened to it, but that's what I put there. Meanwhile, online, I know it's 2 to 4. We've had our sessions 2 to 4 throughout. So maybe just a mishap. Thank you very much. Is there any further question, please? All right, prepare for your IA. You will do very fine. All the best and take care.
Thank you, Dad.
Thank you, Madam. God bless you.
Amen. Thank you too.
Thank you, Madam.
God bless.
Bye.
God bless.
Bye.